Light it.
Welcome back to the Triple Option presented by Wendy's. Rob, Mark, Urban with you. And oh yeah, we are going down to Champaign, Illinois. We are bringing in the head coach of the Fighting Illini, Bret Bielema. Coach, last year, 10-3, first 10-win season since 2001. And guess what? Expectations are even greater this season. We're going to talk about the Illini going forward here. But first, I want to take you back in the Wayback Machine. All right? So if you can remember back in 2012, you were kicking tail up there in Madison, Wisconsin, and some young buck comes into Columbus, Ohio, and with all this little SEC swagger. And I understand some guy named Urban came in and took multiple recruits from right underneath you.
Now, why would you start with that, Rob?
That's how we roll on the Triple Option. Coach Bielema, do I have that right?
Sort of.
Sort of. Go on.
I remember one. There was really just the genesis of one. Who, if Coach remembers, I don't think he ever really played much.
No.
As an offensive lineman. But yeah, like honestly, like I preach all the time to our guys. Like I think as a head coach, I always tell our coaches, two things you can bring in the building every day that really help us all function is consistency and communication. And one of the things that I probably did in that scenario was communication. I had there was a prospect that was committed to us. He got some calls from Ohio State players, which I understood, but then all of a sudden he got calls from Florida players. I'm like, oh, ruh-roh. No, we can't do this, right? So I went to my AD and I said, what should I do? And Coach Alvarez said, call him. I'm like, call Urban? He's like, yeah, call Urban. So I called Urban, and Coach, if I remember right, you listened to me, you addressed it and took care of it, and then my misstep was when I was at the press conference on signing day. Someone asked me if I had interaction with Coach, and I said, yeah, actually, I called him about an issue, and he took care of it, and it kind of went good. And I got done with the interview, and Coach Alvarez goes, ooh, you opened one up there. I'm like, what? He goes, they're going to say that they were cheating. And I'm like, I didn't say that. He goes, well, that's what they're going to say because you said there was an issue. So that was what led to that. What I didn't realize is there was also a couple coaches in the league that came after Urban, unbeknownst to me, in a 48-hour stretch there that really probably did come at him a little aggressive. But obviously, his arrival, changed our league, in my opinion, to a different level instantly, just because of where he was at and what he brought to the table. It really, in my opinion, there was two major transitions in Big Ten history. The first was the addition of Joe Tiller, which turned our league into a league that, basketball on grass, however you want to say it. Drew Brees was a big part of it as well, but Joe was the genesis of that. And I really think Urban was the first really that kind of brought a thinking and ideology from the SEC into our conference that had never been seen before, right? And I think that changed our conference literally in those moments to where we are today, as good as anything in our history.
Well, let's go back to that. So 2012, I just was, as you were talking there, so Penn State, obviously one of the most legendary coaches of all time, a dear friend of mine, and I'm not sure how you got along with Coach Paterno. He was a great friend
Absolutely.
of mine. We lost him, or he obviously he got fired, and then he passed away just months later. Then Jim Tressel, another dear friend of mine, got Ohio State got put on probation, lost 9 scholarships. The Wolverines were going through their turmoil, and here was Wisconsin, was having first-round draft picks, Heisman candidates, and winning the Big Ten championship under your direction. And also, Mark D'Antonio I thought Wisconsin and Michigan State were really the best development programs in the country back then, and they were winning the Big Ten, going to the Rose Bowl. And then Nebraska, under Bo Pelini, I believe they played you in 2012 in the Big Ten championship.
Absolutely.
So here you are back then. Now I'm going to fast forward now. I came from the SEC. You ironically went to the SEC. How proud are you and amazed at the transition? The Big Ten Conference, certainly at the top of the conference, is the best conference in college football the last 2 years. You can't argue that.
How
about the transition that is experienced in your lifetime?
Yeah, Coach, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a different world. Part of the reason I left Wisconsin to go to Arkansas was at that time the Big Ten coaches weren't getting paid at the same level. The reason I took the move more than anything was my assistant coach's salary at Wisconsin went from $3.5 to $6 million, right? And I was able to, a guy like Chris Ash, a guy that eventually ended up at Ohio State, head coach of Rutgers. I was paying him, I believe, at that time maybe a little over 200. I remember there was a coordinator at Minnesota that we had beaten every year that I was in the league, and that DC was making 550,000. And I'm like, hey, we just won our third straight Big Ten title. They haven't been very good, and my coordinator is making less than half. And that's what the genesis of it was. But now to come back in the league, I told Josh this when we knew that the portal was coming, that the NIL world was coming. I was interviewing for the job with the Giants, and I told Josh, I said, hey, there's never been in my opinion, a better time to be coming into this league, because I think the world is about to get flat. I think it's about to become more of a even playing field for everybody in college football, and it's exactly what's happened.
Yeah, Coach, man, we always talk about the powers of college football, the SEC and the Big Ten. No one better to speak on that than you. You played at Iowa, coached at Wisconsin, where I took an official visit when you was the head coach. Now you're at Illinois, but you took a stop in Arkansas. Just how do the SEC and the Big Ten match up, and how far ahead are they from the other conferences?
Well, I think first off, and I get it, you guys got to drive likes and value and all that goes into your podcast as well. But really, it's like arguing about like two premium businesses, like whether you like Chevy or Ford, or maybe it's
Right.
maybe more a Jaguar or a Rolls Royce, like it whatever you want to say. Two incredibly gifted leagues. The passion from their fan bases is unparalleled. The differences, I would say, probably jump out right away is just the venues you play in. Like Ohio State's an incredible stadium, but and Michigan is the Big House is a great stadium. I think our place is going to turn into that. We just had our first sellout in over 20 years. But in the SEC, it's those small market values, right? And the passion in those little. I remember, the furthest you had to stay away from a game, a hotel when you played in the Big Ten was 20 minutes. You go to the SEC and you might have to drive an hour and a half to get to the hotel that you could stay at, right? And that literally said something to me right away. But the fan bases, the way they follow their people. Obviously in the South, one thing that is everything's kind of played, I would say, in pretty conducive weather environments. In the North, in the Big Ten, you're going to play in bad weather with cold. Yep. You're going to play in all four seasons. You're going to play in all four time zones now. And we're really different. The SEC in that model is just that you're going to, and for me, I use this one all the time. Like, if I was recruiting a young Mark Ingram again, right. And if it was down to Wisconsin and Alabama, I would just, share with them that, hey, you're going to prove to 32 NFL teams that you can play in all types of climates and weather, right? You go to the South and you play at Alabama, you're really playing in that environment year round. You're training in it, you're living in it. So if the New York Giants, the Jets, the Vikings, the Packers, the Seahawks, the Chiefs want to select someone, they're going to want someone that plays in all four seasons, because and it's proven that they can do it. So there is a little bit of an advantage there, but otherwise, two really premium conferences for all the right reasons.
I want to go back something with you, Brett, that I thought, and I remember my wife actually met with Gene Smith about this, that when I first got to the Big Ten in 2012, I didn't feel the investment in the stadium atmospheres. I thought, and Shelley was shocked. She experienced the SEC for that 7-8 years, and then you come up there and it's not the same. Some places were good, but even Ohio State, in my mind, wasn't great. The Wolverines weren't great. And then in the last decade, you've seen an incredible investment in whether it be music being played, the crowds it's a completely different animal. Do you see the same thing in the Big Ten? Just the atmospheres are completely different now.
100%. And I would also, Coach, to back up what you're saying, like one of the things that I'll never forget, Jim Delaney, who's an incredibly gifted commissioner and was awesome. I remember sitting in my first ever head coaches meeting, and Jim Tressel and Lloyd Carr took me aside and said, hey, you just finished your first year as a head coach, 12-1. Shoot, I thought I was, Dick Buck or Mike Ditka, Tom Landry, Bill Belichick. I thought I was all that in a bag of nuts, right? Like I thought I was really big time. And those guys said, hey, you really have to understand you're going to be a guy in the future that's going to have to really watch out for our game and our conference, right? And I'll never forget that moment, because when I came in, I didn't know anything other than what I knew. And then when I went to the SEC and I saw Mike Slive sit at the front of the room with a cigar, and he sat in every meeting and he talked about the importance of football. That jumped out to me in the way that it was put on a different level. So when I came back to the league, I literally, and I know James had said the same thing because of his time of Andy, the precedence that the SEC put on football above all else jumped out. And now Tony Petitti, who in my opinion has really been an incredible lifeline for the Big Ten the last couple of years, has really championed that moment to our ADs, and then our ADs have championed that moment on our campuses, and that's probably been one of the bigger changes, like that environment at Penn State, but also the environment at Wisconsin, Ohio State, to its own regard, Nebraska. Like we went into that place last year, and I mean it's impressive, and I think that's definitely changed the conference.
Yeah.
You talk about changes. There's constant changes in college football right now. Just a few weeks ago, we had the introduction of the College Sports Commission, the NIL clearinghouse, this fact that universities are going to have $20+ million to play with. How has that impacted Illinois football in the last couple weeks?
Rob, it's been something that we've been hoping was going to come, and I mean this with all due respect. One of the biggest things that has separated college football in the past is the have-nots, right? And it's not just the history; it's the resources available. And I think a world that we're getting to now, for instance, right now in our recruiting world, we're, for the first time in my 17 years as head coach, and I've had some good teams. And I'm not basing this on anything other than what's being given to me by my outside voices. We have a class that's ranked in the top 10, which I really don't care. I don't want to care. But the idea is this: I know right now we are beating schools I've never beaten before, right? Like we can go head to head with any SEC Big Ten school. I don't care if it's Ohio State or if it's the team that finished last in our conference last year, or the team that finished first in the SEC to the team that finished last in the SEC. If we want them, we're going to go after them. And I've never been able to feel that we've had that level playing field, and now we have it. I've used this line a couple times now, like, I don't care if we're all shopping in Louis Vuitton or if we're all at Walmart, as long as we're all in the same store, I'm good, right? And I think that's coming. And I would say also the element that I hope this new world is going to live in is the accountability for actions that are not legal are pretty big, right? And if you're not doing things the way they're set up to be done, that there's consequences. Because in the NFL, they have selection, they don't have recruiting, right?
Right.
But on the flip side too, they also have a salary cap that everybody has to abide by.
Yep.
And if that can be maintained, like that was the true juice, right? Like in the NFL, everybody's got the same salary cap. Now, however you want to use it, how you want to use it. So my 3 years in the NFL have been invaluable during our building here, because now I think it's more like the NFL than any other time in our lives.
Right.
Well, Rob brought up the College Football Commission, and I was James Franklin, we had a conversation with him, and I don't know if I don't want to say misled, but my understanding was that this College Football Commission was going to have subpoena power. I talked to a gal I knew, Julie Rowe, that was at the NCAA, and she clarified that and says that's not true. To have subpoena power, it's got to be federal or state jurisdiction, and it's not a criminal offense. And so the two game changers to me that you brought up about compliance, and I know me and you have talked about compliance before, is the number one thing is subpoena power. It expedites the investigation, and it holds people accountable that don't tell the truth. And number two is the unionization that you mentioned, the NFL. Everybody operates under the same rules. That's not true in college football. That's not the case. But she clarified she thinks that old problems are going to be new problems are going to be old problems. Old problems are going to be new problems. She doesn't see a big change. Do you see a big change coming?
I hope big change is coming, but I think it's going to be a little bit of a blending of what she's saying and what the people that founded this new way of doing things are all about. I think the one X factor that no one's kind of taking into consideration is, I believe as a head coach, you know everything that goes on in your building, right? Yeah. And if you have to sign a document that you basically say, hey, I am aware and understand everything that has taken place in this NIL world was done prior to June 6th, right? When the court case was settled. Some of these teams are having guys sign documents July 1st or August 1st, and that's a fireable offense. Like you start telling these coaches that are signing contracts for 50, 60, $80 million, me, myself included, and you have to have accountability at that level, that whole contract that you think was yours no matter what, and now you have a fireable offense, that changes the tone of head coaches, in my opinion, in a big way. And then the other thing is this NIL Go that like will look back at high school students. So some of these guys that change graduation dates, this 2026 class is going to have a 30 for 30 for sure written on it, right? Because, they've been able to change, class, moving their time up, and now they're giving money while they're in high school. Well, that money has to be accounted for when you submit to the NIL Go. 2 years prior to your enrollment in college. So if you start looking at kids 2 years out before they get to college and what they were giving, and that value has to match what their actual value is. You can say a kid's worth $1 million, but if Deloitte comes back and says, hey, he's only worth 100,000 and you paid him $1 million, well, somebody's going to have to answer to that. And
Wow.
from my opinion, that's probably going to be the game changer for everybody.
Well, that's crazy. We talk about changes. There's a whole bunch of changes going on in this landscape of college football, but one of the changes I think we can all agree on is the change to the transfer window. How many windows do you think there should be, and when, in your opinion?
I think there should be one, and it should be as early as human possible. I know there's a lot of discussion between January, February, March, April. I think all coaches would want it sooner than later.
Yeah.
The only thing that I see as a problem or problematic is when the portal is actually in the playing season.
Right.
Even if it's just down to a couple teams that are playing the championship game, I would ideally love to put it like championship game is on a Monday. I'd love to open it on Wednesday for a 15,
Right.
30-day window.
Yeah.
But I also get January allows you to get the kids in school. So I think we have to take into consideration, the calendars, how it lays out. I think our student athletes, the one thing that scares me to death, and Mark, obviously you lived as a student athlete, and Coach, you and I know this. They had a thing a couple years ago that basically tracked your APR, which is your annual progression rate of graduation for coaches. And it used to be a really big deal. I haven't had anybody ask me about graduation rates in 10 years, right? Because all these other things become on the forefront. And we just had our 5th straight semester of a 3.0 GPA. That's never been done in college in Illinois history. So I'm really proud of that. But I just don't think some people put that importance at that premium. And I really am scared about the graduation rates of this current world of college football that, we all want to talk about how great it's going to be for these guys as players, but bottom line, not everybody makes a living for the rest of their lives in the NFL. So we got to take care of everybody.
Yes, sir.
Can we talk about Illinois football now, Coach?
Sure.
Can we talk about this program that you've got? There's a lot of hope for this program right now. The last time Illinois was a preseason top 15 team, Coach, you were a nose guard, a 20-year-old nose guard grinding in Iowa City. And Illinois has everything on the resume, at least, to be a top 15 team to start this program. You have a Big Ten best 17 starters returning. You have your quarterback coming. You have your entire offensive line returning. How are you managing these expectations? Are you embracing them, or are you trying to downplay them?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, one of the great things, I'm glad I'm in year 17 rather than year 7, because I just know so much more about the game. I used to get really, to Coach's point at the beginning, I used to be a little feisty and would fight things rather than accept. But I've really learned, just tell me the rules and let's all play. And I'll tell you that I don't think, Rob, in my opinion, I would have been able to keep these 17 guys if the world we live in wasn't what it is now. I was able to prioritize, our top 10, 15 players, got them set right away. Then I filled in the rest of my roster with the money that I had available. Went out and recruited. We brought in 21 high school players, and we brought in about 15 portal players. So we have about, close to 35, 40 new players in our building that weren't with us at the end of last year for that championship, or the Citrus Bowl championship against South Carolina. I'm really excited. I have both offensive, defense, and special teams coordinator back in their 3rd year or more. So my AD has allowed me to have some revenue there to really take care of my coaches. I really get excited. I'm sure Coach Meyer would share with you the best seasons are usually around your best players, but also your best staffs, right? And to be very, very comfortable with the guys I have in that room, it allows me to do my job, I think, a lot better. So super excited, but you're right. I got a quarterback that, I'm not oblivious to the fact that others came after him, right? And he could have left me for more money, I'm sure of it. He never called me one time and asked for anything. Never gave us any privy. He denied the things that came at him. But I think he knows what our room brings to him, right? He knows that he walks in this building every day and help him get to where he wants to be. He got a draft value of about a 6th rounder a year ago. My goal is to make that a 2nd rounder better, right? And that's kind of how we kind of build this thing up. 3
of your first 4 are on the road. You do not have Oregon, Michigan, Penn State. You do have Ohio State, but you have them home October 11th. You also have USC home. You look at the totality of your schedule. What does it say to you? And then how are you messaging that to your team?
Yeah. So Rob, we have every school in the country has a 12-game schedule. And I always tell our guys, what you do with those 12 games determines, that success of the year. But if anybody tries to go to game 12, which is our home game against Northwestern, a protected game that we play a Cannon Trophy for, if you try to jump to the end of the rainbow, we're never going to make it, right? Everybody
Right.
chases that pot of gold. It's never there. It's just an emphasis on our game one opener against Western Illinois. We go on the road to Duke, which is a very good football team, has a lot of really good players coming back, a very talented quarterback, came back, play Western Michigan, but then game 4 is at Indiana. Oh, well, they were just in the college football playoffs last year, one of the best teams in college football. Kurt Cignetti is an incredibly gifted coach. He's got a really good staff. His O-line coach was a guy I was with for 7 years. He's one of the best offensive line coaches that I've ever been around. So we got a tremendous challenge. Come back game 5 against USC here at home, which is one of the most productive programs in college football history. Got a really good coach, got some really good players. Go on the road and play at Purdue, another trophy game, then come back in game 7 and play Ohio State. Oh yeah, the defending national champs who got a lot of really good players and a good coach. So we are the only team in college football, or I'm sorry, in the Big Ten Conference. We don't have a bye week until week 8, which I think is a really big deal. But I think those bye weeks are an important part of the college football year, and we have the latest in our conference. So, listen, everybody can get anybody on any given Saturday because we've had a little bit of success a year ago. We definitely are, I think, a program that is very well noted, and I think people are preparing for us right now today that probably weren't in the past. So we've got our work cut out for us. I had this quote, I stole it from Coach Belichick. He after our first year with him, I was with him, and we were going to our second year, and they asked about expectations, and he said, "Well, I hope my expectations are obviously thought of, but it's really about what our player expectations are. We expect our players to have even higher expectations, and that's what I hope is happening. I think our guys are hungry, much as I want things as a coach. How they want it as a player is the true source."
Coach, you know that schedule like the back of your hand, man.
I got one last question for you, Bret, and that's first of all, I've always respected Illinois. I've said that many times. I could never understood why it's in a great location. You got you got a lot of good players all the way around you. But just a big picture question. You saw the Ward Manuel, the athletic director for the Wolverines, talk about a $20 million. They're going to lose money. You see Washington, another Big Ten team now, is going to eliminate, I think, track and field or the field part of it. And I had 2 girls play college volleyball. I'm just, I grew up in the environment where you didn't have open budgets, and it's like a spend world now. Where the hell is that money coming from? And at some point, is it going to break? When you start talking about the Wolverine, one of the top brands in the game is going to have they're predicting over a $20 million shortage in revenue. Where do you see this stopping, or where's the money come from?
Coach, I mean, it's a great big picture item. For me, I go back to what I've known, right? So I grew up in this business as a young coach in the University of Iowa under Hayden Fry, who turned that program into something that is still being lived today. There's been only 2 coaches for over 50 years in Iowa's history, him and Kirk, right? And they're continuing to print money over there, I think, because they keep that stadium as full as they can, and obviously a lot of other things. Then I go to Kansas State, and Bill Snyder built that place into something that has been unprecedented. Then I go to Wisconsin, and Barry Alvarez turned that place into a money machine, right? And I didn't know it when I was growing up, but I was around 3 guys there, with Hayden Fry to Kirk Ferentz to Bill Snyder to Barry Alvarez, 4 guys, first year Hall of Famers, right? They probably did more with less than anybody they've ever been around before, right? And then I think other people, when it was so available, just spent it because they could spend it, right? I told our AD, Josh Whitman, when I got here, I'm going to spend your money like it's my money, right? Like, I'm going to be very conscientious about what we do, but I just don't think people are wired that way anymore. So it's going to be an intriguing time. I think college football is at a place that's never been any better. But I do know this, like, I have a lot of good friends that work in our department at Intercollegiate DIA here at Illinois. Our men's baseball coach, Dan Hartlib, is a guy that extended his hand to me the first day on the job here, right? Our men's golf coach, Mike Small, is an incredible person. My next door neighbor is Shauna Green, who has our Illinois women's basketball program at a place it's never been in a long time, right? So I think that I've tried to tell Josh, I know the more success we have, the more success we'll have. And I don't know if that's shared everywhere else. That's what makes Illinois kind of special. To your point, I've been eyeing this job for a long time, man. Like, we're right next to Ohio. We're a lot of great players in Ohio. We have a direct flight in from Dallas, so we get access to Texas. I've signed over 190 players from Florida, so I have a good name down there. So we've got a lot of players from Jersey, but we really concentrate on 5 hours outside of Champaign. Florida and Jersey. That's the meat and potatoes of our recruiting market, and we kind of stick to that and what we do.
Yeah, well, Coach, hey man, I remember you recruited me, man, and it was a great experience. I went to Wisconsin, man. I had a great time. I respected you and what you were building in Wisconsin. You had some beast in the running back room. Tell me about your running backs, man. I want to know who I need to be on the lookout for this year.
Yeah, Mark, I'm very excited. We have 3 guys last year that are coming back to us that very special. And it's kind of like what I had when I was at Wisco. I had a roster one year. John Clay was a 5th rounder to Pittsburgh, big 260-pound bruiser, just a war daddy. Behind him was this guy by the name of Monty Ball, who ended up being a 2nd-round pick to Denver Broncos. And behind him was this young guy by the name of James White, who was a freshman Big Ten Player of the Year. And then there's this other guy, Melvin Gordon, who became a 1st-rounder, right? Those 4 guys were on one roster. All 4 of them were just a little bit different, and that's kind of what I got going now. Caden Fagan, big bruiser, really, really talented. Unfortunately, lost him about middle of the season last year, but he's back healthy 100%. Aiden Lawfrey was the final game of the year for us in the Big Ten. He was a Big Ten Player of the Week, very small, and not small, but he's a little bit smaller, very powerful, very athletic. He can turn 10 into 100 in a hurry. Our fastest players. And then Khalil Valentine was a true freshman a year ago, weighing 180. He's now at 205. Got all the bumps in the right places. Really, really excited about him. And have 2 freshmen coming in the room. We did lose a guy to Georgia. Somehow he found his way to the portal, and 12 hours after being in the portal, he was on a flight to Georgia. I don't know how that happened, but it's crazy.
Weird how that happened.
So, but wish Josh and all the best. He took advantage of that opportunity. So, we've been able to build a running back room in a really good way, and excited about these guys coming back. But we have all 5 of our offensive linemen back. We have a center.
That's sexy. That's sexy for a running back there.
Josh Kreutz has been a 3-year starter. Left tackle, J.C. Davis, 2-year starter. Melvin Privacy, right tackle, 2-year starter. Left guard, Josh Geske, 3-year starter. 3-year starter at quarterback. Have a room full of tight ends that have played a lot of really good football. So super excited to see how this thing plays out.
I love
Coach,
it.
Coach, let's put a smile on your face. Your dad grew up a St. Louis Cardinals fan. And as kids like to do sometimes with the old man, they like to antagonize him. So you started leaning into the Chicago Cubs, right?
Right.
And now, how many times have you been to Wrigley Field to sing the 7th inning stretch?
I think this one was number 5. So
5 times.
I got some pipes now. I can carry it.
But I know you don't need the words handed to you. You know them off the top of the head.
What was funny? The first time I ever did it, I'm the head coach of Wisconsin. They found out I was a Cubs fan. My dad, we always listened to Cardinals games growing up, but my grandpa was a Cubs guy. And so I remember early on, learning the song and all that goes into it. But in 2006, they called me and some guy left a message. Hey, this is with the Cubs. Love to have you sing the stretch. And I thought it was a BS phone call. The guy had some name. I'm like, okay, Harry, whatever your name is, right? So I did it, and I'll never forget just the feeling of that moment. And then when I came here to Illinois, they do it every spring, and I'm like, oh, sign me up. I'm in. But this year, I'm like, let's do something a little different. So I asked Luke, my quarterback, to join me, and he absolutely rocked it. It was awesome. So I'm hoping next year I get to do the duet with my daughter. My oldest, Briella, sings it all the time. So hopefully next year I'll get a duet with her.
Let's go.
Did you hear it? There you are.
Oh.
Did you let him take the lead, or was it more of a duet, the two of you?
It was a duet, and I will, full transparency, we went through it twice. I shot him. So when Harry Carey was retiring, he did one with Eddie Vedder, and I sent that one to Luke. I said, hey, we can beat these guys, right? And
you're not beating Eddie Vedder, brother.
Well,
no offense, Coach.
That was the plan.
We're talking Pearl Jam, brother.
So we actually, Luke and I did a little a 1, and he did a 2. And then I actually stole one of his lines, and he quickly just joined in. So it was actually pretty good adaptation, but he handled it like $1 million, as he does everything. Luke had four game-ending winning drives last year. So, like, as coach, Mark knows this as a player. Rob, you've seen it as a guy doing the sidelines. Your quarterbacks are defined by the most difficult moments.
Yes. And
Luke Altmaier had 4 scenarios where he put the icing on the cake at the end of the game in a way that no one else has ever done it before for me. Been very blessed to have some really good quarterbacks in my program, but this kid handles the moment as good as anybody. And the 7th inning stretch was just another great example of how good he could be.
Did you throw out the first pitch? Have you done that?
No, we deferred that one to Brad Underwood and Shauna Green.
You let Coach Underwood do that. All right.
Brad did it. And I will say this: I think it was a one hopper. I'm not gonna.
No.
Those would stress me out more than
Absolutely.
sing and take me out to the ball game.
I know I can sing, but you sure as hell ain't gonna get me to throw a pitch. I promise
No,
you.
bro.
That'll be internet chatter
All you
for
gotta
years.
do is throw it to the man, like
Yeah.
in the general vicinity.
Mark,
that
Mark,
game
yeah,
would
you have not seen me throw, man. I promise. Hey, in
I
every
threw me a
sport,
heater at the Detroit Tigers game. You know, I'm from Michigan, so I threw me a heater at the Tigers game. You know what I mean?
I always say in gym class when I was little, I was the first guy taken in every sport, volleyball, whatever. But baseball, they knew I was last man standing. I could not play baseball to save my tail. But so I'm not about to throw myself into that world.
Hey, Coach, I want to end with this. Is it fair to put Illinois in this preseason college football playoff conversation right now?
I think we've done some really good things. And I know, Urban got to walk this walk with Gene Smith, who in my opinion is one of the best athletic directors in the history of the game, right? Of the sport, of college athletics. Gene is phenomenal. I get to walk this walk every day with Josh Whitman, my AD. He played here. He was a 2-time academic All-American. Went on to play in the NFL for 5 years for about 4 or 5 different clubs, which tells me he's a survivor, right? And now I get to be at this job every day with him as an AD, and that is worth its weight in gold. So I think the two of us together have talked all the time about sustainable success. I didn't want to do this as a one-year flash in the pan. I want to do it to build success. We were really good 2 years ago, took a step back, and then last year got back at it. So I think wherever we're at, you put us where we're at, I think we carry a chip on our left shoulder and our right. We don't have to, but we just got to carry that thing every day with us. And I just want to get to that first game and see where we can go. I'm super excited about this group of people. Our fan base is absolutely awesome. I think because they've been starved for a long time, they're really enjoying some rewards they haven't seen in the past. And with that, all of us have success. It's really an exciting time to be here at the program.
I'm hoping
Coach,
we pull up the champagne for sure.
There you go. There you go. The three of us, our goal for a while has been to take Big Noon Kickoff to Champaign, and I've got a sneaky suspicion we're gonna find you this year. If so, please join us on set. I know you're busy. Before kickoff. We would love to have you on set, that opening segment, and get that crowd popping. We also might need a dinner recommendation. Otherwise, we're just going to be knocking on your front door and crashing. So
Champaign is eager and excited. I do think I know we were on the docket last year. We probably didn't take care of business as good as we needed to early, but if we see you guys, we see you. You guys are always welcome. Champaign will always take care of you.
Love it.
Thanks for your time, Coach.
Thanks for your time, man. Have a great summer.
Thank you very much. You guys as well. ILL.
We're rooting for you, Coach.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir.
Light it.